the new Bureau Chief. Welcome.
Members, I do want to I want to take the time and introduce Ms. Ajax. Have the pleasure on February 4th. Ms. Ajax was appointed as the new Bureau Chief, and her first day was shortly thereafter on the 24th, and she has hit the ground running. So, Ms. Ajax, thank you. As background members, following the passage of the 3 bills known as the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act, the department is now mandated to regulate medical cannabis dispensaries, distributors, and transporters. On the 19th of January, I provided the legislature an update on our progress in regulating this industry. In that update, I detailed our 4 phases of implementation: hiring staff, drafting regulations, information technology development, and finally, the licensing and enforcement of this industry. Currently, the department is in phase 1 of implementation. During this phase, the department is focused on hiring the staff necessary to draft regulations and convene stakeholder meetings. On the 4th of February, as I stated, Ms. Ajax was appointed, and I'm very pleased to have Ms. Ajax as a member of our team. One of the greatest implementation challenges for the department and my colleague next to me will be to develop thoughtful and informed regulations with ample stakeholder input by the 1st of January of 2018. For this reason, the department has prioritized hiring legal staff to draft those regulations in a thoughtful manner and administrative staff to support the Bureau and the Bureau's chief. The department is also continuing to look for opportunities to educate the public about the regulatory process and what we do. In turn, the department is also aggressively seeking ways to learn more about this industry. To date, the department has met with dozens of stakeholder groups, spoken at various industry forums, and attended tours on different cannabis facilities. Currently, every division of the department has a role in the implementation of this act. Soon after the governor signed all 3 bills, the department instituted weekly meetings to identify implementation issues, action items, education opportunities. These meetings have included staff from every division of the department. As with other entities under the department, the Bureau will receive services from the department's legislative, legal, human resources, and budget offices, just to name a few. The department will be especially critical during the startup phase, as the Bureau has a number of large mandates to implement in a short period of time. The department is currently assessing what IT solution, including Breeze, may be suitable for issuing the Bureau's license. At this time, it is still too early to say which IT solution works best. Though the Act provides some framework for regulation, the department will need to develop more detailed guidelines and business process requirements through the rulemaking process to guide the IT implementation solution. In addition, the department has been working collaboratively with our partner agencies, the Department of Food and Agriculture and the Department of Public Health, to implement the Act. With that, members, this concludes this portion of my testimony. Thank you again for your time, and I will be happy to address any questions these bodies may have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Director, and welcome, Ms. Ajax. It seems that the Director and the appointment is in the right direction, and I know you have your hands full for the next few months, so thank you for taking on the challenge.
Thank you.
It's exciting. A few questions, and I'll start with just a couple, especially related to Breeze. You talked about the release 1 and the maintenance efforts that you've, and correcting some of those. I think you talked about 331, I think, and 52 have gotten. Do you have a projected time frame of when that will be completed and we can kind of put release 1 behind us?
The time frame currently, it's not moving as fast as I would like, simply because we don't have the staff capacity to chew through those maintenance fixes. The 331, Senator, that I mentioned was the new
That was
Release 2,
right?
after
Okay.
Release 2. We are making progress with Release 1, but nowhere near the capacity that I would like. I will have a better time frame once I complete the staffing up and see and increase the capacity with the maintenance contract. After that, then I'll have a more accurate time frame.
And could you let us know when you get to that point?
With
of what
pleasure.
that timeframe would be? That would
Absolutely.
be great. And then also on Release 2, you've talked about the 52 of the 331. When do you expect that to be completed or brought to completion?
The 331, it is dwarfed, the maintenance requests in Release 1 dwarfed the 331, and we're not differentiating between the two, and they're in the same maintenance bucket. So when I have an accurate picture of what our workload and
see,
maintenance schedule is, it's in the same bucket. I'll provide both to these bodies.
Now, when you were talking about the cost effectiveness of Release 3 and looking, or those that have not been, the 19 boards that have not been included in 1 or 2, so are you anticipating that you may not go through the Breeze system, but you may find another system to utilize rather than complete it with Breeze, even though I think we now have the tech,
Right.
we have the software, I guess, to be able to move forward. Do you see that possibly happening, and would that create some complications within the system to have two different systems that may not be able to communicate as clearly with one another?
It would, and it would not only the systems, and it would be a contradiction to my overall vision of a single system
Right.
that standardizes data across. Notwithstanding what that vision is, I do have to be mindful of what the business needs of the boards and bureaus are. I don't want to recklessly put a square peg in a round hole. So if the process prescribed for in Caltech's project approval life cycle says that no, you should not put this square peg in this round hole, then the process will defend that decision, and we will figure out a way of getting the best system for that client. The Breeze system that we already have, and we have the staff that's supporting the Breeze system, is going to be part of that analysis, and it should be. But we do not want to have a predetermined set of answers before we go through that process.
Okay, and I have one more related to Breeze, and then see if then see what the other committee members and the chair has on related to Breeze, and then we'll go on to pro rata after that. It seems that the numbers that have been provided to the committee by the department seem to fluctuate for Breeze-related costs, payments by the boards. Why do they appear to change so often?
I had to learn this myself, honestly, Senator. It's not a fluctuation, and it's simply what we're measuring. The last 2 years, when we were talking about project costs, big P, that is the cost of the project, and project is defined very carefully pursuant to Caltech rules as well as other rules. However, we track everything that is associated, the big cost, big C, with everything associated with Breeze. That is different than project. Project is going to end 6 months from now, but costs are still going on just like they did with the old legacy system. It costs to run the system. We track that to make sure that we're accurately providing the services to all of the boards and bureaus. So both are accurate, but they're two different questions. That was the reason for the fluctuations.
Okay. We'll move on to other questions within Breeze or with the antitrust liability, and then
Sure.
we'll take on the pro rata thing. Madam Chair.
One of the question I really have is on the legislation that hasn't been able to be, the enacted legislation that hasn't actually been implemented
Sure.
because of Breeze. And then as there's pending legislation, and I know you touched on the fact, and I think I heard you say that it doesn't affect your recommendation whether or not we can implement it. But what's going to happen with the 16? I think is it 16 bills? I lost the 11 bills that are being delayed, and then future legislation, because of course as legislators, short of a veto, the next worst thing is just to have your bill not ever get implemented. What's your solution there?
So I don't anticipate the same level of rigidity that was experienced in the recent year, because we will not be in what I'm going to talk in tech terms, so let me apologize in advance. Scope lock. We were in the middle of release 2, and we could not make any changes to the scope of that release until afterwards. That was the reason for that delay. Notwithstanding that, Madam Chair, there may be low complexity legislative changes that could be done simply, and there's a process for that. And there could be more complex changes that would require more time and resources to implement. Adding 3 new license categories requires a lot more staff and thought and complexity. Changing definitions, changing permissions, et cetera, is something completely different. So my direction to staff is we take it on a case-by-case basis.
And then with the rollout of the medical marijuana regulations, how is that going to fit into the whole Breeze world?
I think, I think we have to look at Breeze. Breeze is here, and it is a system that is supported by staff currently, and generally, it licenses and enforces. However, I do not want to repeat, the assumptions that were made in Release 1, which guided us into Release 1, and presuppose the needs of a bureau until we understand through the chief's leadership, what the bureau needs. But again, Breeze is going to be a large factor in that conversation as we explore the technology solution.
So there will be a point in time where you'll make an evaluation and recommendations of
Absolutely.
what would be the most effective way to actually manage the new bureau,
Absolutely.
technology-wise.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll move to Senator Wajkowski and then Assemblymember Woods.
I have a medical pot question later, but on the North Carolina Board of Dentists, I agree with your presentation that you are going to need the authority to disapprove anti-competitive. I didn't think I heard you say that the executive directors of all these different bureaus, would they get that same authority? Is that what the ask would be?
No, it would just be with the director.
Okay, so
the current process is regulations that are being promulgated by the boards. I have a current approval process. However, I do not have the authority to disapprove based on anti-competitive, or if something is anti-competitive. So this is just adding that to the scope. It's a careful expansion of my state oversight.
is there clarification on your ability to modify? Because the decision says veto or modify the decision. And is that spelled out without a complete denial of the action that the board or commission has taken?
That's a really good question. Currently, the process, I can modify and I work. It's not just an up or down
Okay.
process. Notwithstanding how it reads, the department shares a very good working relationship with the boards. Bureaus, I'm leaving separate because it's a different oversight structure. But with the boards, through my staff and even me, if I have an issue, which is not very often with regulations, we sit down with them and we modify and they answer questions. I answer questions to clarify. So that part, Senator, I'm a little less worried about. It is simply the answering the question of state oversight and a disinterested market participant.
And while our report includes a couple of paragraphs of the Attorney General's letter to Senator Hale, on the issue of treble damages, there's nothing specific about that. Is it the Attorney General's thinking or your understanding that extension of your ability to modify or veto a decision that includes anti-competitiveness is going to be enough to get out of jail card for all the board members and commissioner members on the treble damages. That's the.
I dare not say get out of jail free card. I think this is, I don't think anything is bulletproof. I think this is the best, this is the soundest way of mitigating, recognizing we're not North Carolina.
It's easy for you all to say.
What's that?
No, I said that's easy for you all to say.
You know, we have differing appointing authorities. The associations do not appoint to our boards. There is some oversight structure here in California. However, we did recognize that we have to provide some mitigating steps, and not completely go overboard. So there was a lot of thought and consultation behind these recommendations.
Thank you, Senator Wachowski. Assemblymember Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple. I'm going to go hit on a variety of topics that you discussed. First of all, with the regard to breeze and some of the fixes that you're talking about, do we not have, or do we have arrangements with the vendor for some of these technology fixes? I know in the private sector,
Yes.
when you buy a package of things, you get maintenance that goes along with that. So I'm curious, how long does our maintenance program go, and why would we need to be hiring additional staff to fix things? If we do have a maintenance sort of program, how can you explain that to me? Because I'm curious about that. It seems to differ a little bit from what my personal experience is.
Your personal experience is actually spot on. We do have a very, very robust maintenance package or maintenance contract. The thought behind the maintenance package that I spoke to last year before these bodies was we need to incorporate as much knowledge transfer. I believe it's a 1 year with optional years. The reason behind that is I would like to have more of state staff doing this and less vendor staff. Until I am able to hire and train state staff to do these fixes, minor or medium fixes, that's where we have to augment with vendor staff. It's just a way of mitigating the temporary problem.
So that's a lot more expensive, I would guess.
Absolutely.
And so I think part of the problem you said is you're trying to hire temporary staff, or
Correct.
So if we're going to have continuing maintenance issues, why wouldn't we be moving towards permanent staff? I can't imagine this program is going to run flawlessly as we move forward and add other entities to it.
This is the issue, and it is something that, rightly so, we have to prove the need to the legislature. Pursuant to last year's conversations, we had to prove the need and the continued need for permanent staff ongoing. So I believe the need is being shown that we're going to need state staff, and in order for the department to provide increased services, not just what we're doing now, but I would like to provide better services to the boards and bureaus on Breeze. It's an ongoing workload, and I truly believe that there is some permanency associated with that.
Is it possible to quantify that so that to make that case? I just can't. I think of some of the things that we, as a city, when I was with the city, the things that we thought we were getting our problem solved by contracting out for certain services. And the reality is, if we could have actually just hired people to take those positions, the
Sure.
savings to the organization was huge. And once we saw that quantified, it made a perfect case.
Sure.
So could you quantify that for us? And maybe that would help make the case for us to support this, because with the lack of, the maintenance fix as far as the contracts and things, I think you'd make your case pretty quickly, quite frankly.
Thank you.
So, also, let's see, with regards to medical marijuana, and I got the opportunity to meet with our new bureau chief last week, and at a meeting of 6 counties which she was at, and talk about hitting the floor running. Welcome to my world, and thank you for being there. I would just go back to a little bit about the program, potential use of Breeze. It may be fairly easy to get people to add their license, to sign up for their licenses. You're still going to have an issue of how you accept the cash. So they're going to sign up to your license online, and then they're going to bring their cash probably to Sacramento to pay for that license.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're going to do that. Maybe as part of your communications outreach program, as you're working with CDFA and DPH, regional workshops, regional opportunities for license compliant, license sign up as we get to that date, which is obviously in 2018. But the growing complexity of that will be a real challenge for you going forward. And I would just like to say, with regard to that, the communication and how you actually communicate with stakeholders, I know we in government tend to have lots of silos. This is one of those areas where the silos will absolutely kill us.
Absolutely.
And so the more you can work jointly, no pun intended, with your fellow agencies and do these workshops and communications together, the better. Because quite frankly, the forums and things that I've been at, where you ask questions, if we don't have the right expertise there, it doesn't do any of us any
That's
good.
right.
And then finally, the topic that I was curious about, a little bit about the Cures database, and Cures 2.0, still scheduled to come on July 1st, 2016.
Yes, and I will, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I will defer to.
Well, and we will have that
Oh,
discussion.
is that coming up?
That will
Sorry,
be
I'm
coming
sorry.
up.
It was in this section here. I apologize. I didn't
That'll
mean to
come
jump
up
the
in a little
gun.
while.
Okay.
We'll have that
Never mind.
discussion.
No,
Thank
sorry.
you. Nope, my bad. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. So if we could move now to pro rata, just some of the questions in
Sure.
there that came up. You indicated that you were satisfied with the CPS study that looked at the pro rata charges. Do you plan on, and you also talked a little bit about moving forward, do you plan to calculate or recalculate some of the and distribute the costs differently after looking at that, differently than you currently do?
We're always looking to see how best to spread the costs equitably. Senator, what we balance between is having drastic, spikes and valleys in cost allocation and a stable cost distribution. The current, one of the current formulas, there's 3 or 4 formulas that I'm aware of. One of the current formulas, which is allocated positions, we feel it is the most equitable because it mitigates against the spikes and valleys that you would find as staff leaves, comes, and if it's based on workload. There are cases to be made on basing costs on workload, but for the general services, the legal services, the core functions of DCA and the oversight that it provides, we try to keep the cost as stable as possible without having spikes and valleys.
Okay, and so hopefully we will see some changes based on the CPS study. I mean, I think that's really identified a number of areas and issues, and especially when you look at some of the boards that are seeking fee increases.
Sure.
And that need fee increases, and based on the fact that they don't have the reserves and they need that, but yet the pro rata is still killing them. And so I'm hoping that there's some sensitivity to that and
Absolutely.
some way of looking at how that can be apportioned in a way that's fair. Other questions? Yes.
I'm sorry, I just had one follow-up, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence. I just wanted to ask our new bureau chief, Ms. Ajax, at what point do you anticipate the ability for you to actually begin to hire staff? My understanding from last week is that you are a staff of 1.
Yes, I am a Bureau of One, but thankfully I have the DCA has been very generous with providing me with folks to help with the legislation and hiring and legal staff. So right now we're in the process of interviewing for our attorneys, to bring on board so we can start with the drafting of regulations and administrative staff. So we don't really have anybody to really answer phones and even go through mails or just even put together things. So right now, those are the main things, attorneys and administrative staff, and I am trying very hard this month. That is a big priority, and of course, meeting with the stakeholders too.
Sure,
So.
sure. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Very good, thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I would like to call up Robbie Subner, Special Counsel for Legislation from the Attorney General's Office, to join the Director, if you would. And thank you, Ms. Ajax. Appreciate it, and good luck this next year. You'll be presenting on the CURE system. Mr. Sumner, thank you. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. Robert Sumner with the Department of Justice. In a little bit, I'm going to be Director Gadani's lawyer, but for now, I'm his IT guy. So what we've been calling CURES 2.0 is the implementation of Senate Bill 809 by then Senator DeSaulnier a couple of years ago. And this has been a collaborative interagency effort between the Department of Justice, which has traditionally administered some version of the prescription drug monitoring program since the 40s, along with the Department of Consumer Affairs and their regulatory boards, in recognition of the fact that this system, which had originally been defunded, is now funded through a licensing fee scheme with the users of the system. And so we have a relationship where we are making sure at all times that we have a system that is both effective for investigatory and disciplinary use and also provides a real value to its users who are funding and paying for the system. In that sense, we've essentially been trying to treat it like we would any other product on behalf of the Department of Justice. Our CJIS division, the California Justice Information Services Division, is the IT wing of the Department of Justice and handles a myriad of different technical components of California law. And there's a lot of pride in what they do, and we believe that despite some legacies of frustration with the CURES database in the past, we have a lot of belief that CURES 2.0 is a very solid product for both the regulators and for the licensees. To clarify the current status of the CURES 2.0 launch, we've had CURES 2.0 in what we call a production environment since actually last summer. We refer to it as a soft launch that came out in July, and that's when we took the system live so that it was fully operational. The infrastructure of the new 2.0 system housed all the data and was accessible. What we did between the middle of last year to the beginning of this year is we did a phased rollout to users to make sure that we were bringing it to licensees at a rate of acceptance that wouldn't hit them all at once, confuse them, or often exceed their current technical capacities, because one of the new changes with CURES 2.0 is that we are employing very strict privacy protection and data security requirements. In January of this year, we did what we called the universal launch. And what that meant is that as long as you do meet those technical capabilities for the new system, all CURES users are now automatically enrolled into the CURES 2.0 environment. If you don't have a compatible browser that meets the security requirements, those users are still being automatically redirected to CURES 1.0. But at the moment, the vast majority of users and the status quo of the system is the CURES 2.0 environment. So despite that dual operation that's going on right now, I feel comfortable saying that the 2.0 system is fully launched. At that point, it's worth noting the robustness of the system. We get about 1 million new prescription records every week into CURES 2.0. That means that right now this database has about 400 million total prescription records that are accessible within the database. Use of the system, I think, is really indicative of the fact that it provides a serious benefit to healing arts practitioners. We see about 6 million prescription records or patient activity reports from 2015 And that's up from the previous year when it was 3.5 million. So if you think of that jump in 2014 at 3.5 million to 6 million in 2015, you really see that there's been a big uptick in adoption of the system as part of regular practice. And then even more compelling is versus that 6 million that we saw last year, it was 500,000 in 2010. So use of the system has really increased by about a dozen times in the past 5 years. At this stage, we're also seeing a very large uptick in registrants for the system. The current state of the law is that there's no requirement that you use the system, but all licensees that have the ability to prescribe scheduled drugs within the state of California are required to be registered with the system or have applied for registration by the middle of this year on July 1. And so what we're seeing right now is back in 2011, prior to this mandate and prior to the launch of the new system, we saw about 8,500 registrants. And as of this time in 2016, I would estimate about 85,000. So that's almost 10 times the number of registered users.